Hey, and welcome. So now it's time to walk the talk, and over the next few minutes, I'll be going over exactly how I decode client voice and mirror it in copy to take copy that doesn't even remotely sound like the client and then make it automatically, sound like the client. And for the voice I'm going to be using Sean Anthony, and I don't know if you know him, but he's a coach that teaches other coaches and uh, offer owners how to sell without sales calls. And before I start decoding his voice, I want to introduce you to how I think about client voice. So, when you look at voices that appear in online writing, you have nine different voices: the eternal optimist, anti establishment, underdog. Those are voices that lead with outlook. Voice of God, parent, translator. Those are voices that lead with authority. Friend at the bar, learn as we go, and yoga. Those are voices that lead with accessibility. So when you plot a client's voice and check if they're using advanced vocabulary or simple vocabulary, or if they're using long cadence or short cadence, you can now find if these clients are, and then you wedge it against the copy they write and see if they are leading with authority, which is for these sets of voices, or if they are leading with the outlook of life, and or if they are leading with accessibility, the accessibility to their audience. So when you add um how they lead to the mix of their vocabulary and cadence, you can now easily find the kind of voice these clients use. And I'm going to be showing you that demonstrating that with Sean Anthony's, Sean Anthony's copy. And yeah, for the copy we're using this email. This four sentence email did 60K in a day. But before that, I grabbed two of his email. I grabbed this email and another email and basically broke them down. I decoded the math behind the emails. And how I did that is I copied this email, removing the picture, and pasted it here. Sean Anthony's email, pasted it here. So now we're going to go over that together. I will copy this email and paste it into analyze my writing. So copy, paste. What analyze my writing does, let me give you a brief intro. What analyze my writing does is analyze my writing um breaks down text into sentences and scales them into percentage. You can see percentage and then punctuation marks per 100 sentences. So analyze my writing, all it does is to help you find the cadence. And if you remember, like on my profile while I was explaining, all I did was click analyze text. So if you remember on my profile where I was telling you that vocabulary voice is equal to vocabulary plus cadence plus tone. This is what analyze my writing will help you do. Analyze my writing will help you find this cadence. Hemingway app will help you see how they use the vocabulary, and then we can now, use our intuition to find the tone they use in the emails. So for the cadence, let's go back to analyze my writing. Analyze my writing found that they have about 73 sentences, and um there are a lot of commas here per 169 commas. That's a lot. But if you read the email, you see that Sean Anthony was not using any comma. You can see instead of writing comma, he will either end the sentence or use ellipses to continue on the next paragraph. He had one sentence paragraphs, and that brings us to the question: where did analyze my writing find all these commas that they are using to suggest that Sean Anthony is writing a high cadence? Because if you're writing a high cadence, it's like you're writing so many ideas in one paragraph. I was going to church, comma. I saw her on the road, comma. We bought something along the way to church, comma. But Sean Anthony doesn't do that. He writes choppy sentences. I was going to church, full stop. I saw her along the way, ellipses. So where do these commas come from? that's when you open the email and see that the commas actually come from the figures he was writing, because he listed a lot of figures. He doesn't use sales pages. He writes his emails and then writes a short sales letter for the offer inside the same email, and that's where all the commas come from. So if you don't read the email and look at so if you look at Analyze My Writing without reading the email, you'll be misled thinking he's writing with a long cadence. And apostrophes per 100 sentences, there are about 58 apostrophes. This is one metric you cannot skill. Once you see apostrophe, an apostrophe is an apostrophe. So it shows that he's writing with contractions. Instead of you are, he's writing you are. Instead of they are, they are. So you definitely see that in the email when you read them. You see it's won't, not will not. I'm, not I am. So apostrophe is there, and it shows us he's writing with a casual tone. And then if we go back to the voices, the only kind of voice that uses a casual tone are the voices under this x-axis. Now you see the translator, the parent, the underdog, friend at the bar, and learn as we go. So we've narrowed it down to where we can look at. And if you go back to the site, basically seeing his value proposition is he's leading with sharing whatever it is he has found. And if you read his emails, and you see exactly this portraying across all his emails, and that's how I was able to narrow down the fact that he's a hybrid voice between friend at the bar and learn as we go. So he's a hybrid voice between these two. So he writes simple sentences, and all he does, instead of leading with authority like, hey, I've sold $5 million across my career, he's not doing that. He's showing you, hey, this is the framework that helped me sell $5 million. And if you follow me, I'll teach you this framework. So you can see the subtle difference in that. And that's how his voice comes out in copy. So now we've found the exact voice. How do we decode the vocabulary and the cadence so we can replicate it in copy? So remember, we've copied this email. Take a look at this short LinkedIn post. We copied this email and pasted here. And everything we see here, I've taken them and pasted here one after the other. So you can see total sentence is 73. Commas per 100 sentences. That is, since Analyze My Writing scales it up to 100. So we'll go down. Commas per 100 sentences, 69 commas. Quotation marks, 2 quotation marks. So I've basically taken everything, pasted his email into Analyze My Writing, and taken out all the figures. So something else I want you to notice is the average word length. Most people will have a median word length of 4, but then this is what is most important. Where across the spectrum of 4 do you fall in? So you can see he falls in closer to 0, 4.31. So you can see he's using very, very short, like very simple words, and his average sentence is about 14.5 words per sentence, and I've written that too. Average word count 4.31, and his average sentence 14.65. So here's where the magic happens. There's an email I wrote for a client while I was still working at a previous agency, and I used that for this demonstration. So before that, let me show you Sean Anthony's email in Hemingway app. Since you're familiar with Hemingway app, copy, paste in Hemingway app. You can see readability is on grade 4. This is for Sean Anthony's email. So for this email I wrote for this client, the client is he's a voice of God. He doesn't speak with simple words. He speaks with big words. But then when he writes emails, he kind of tones it down, but still speaks harshly. So if we take this email that I wrote for this client and paste it in Hemingway. Remember, Sean Anthony's email came out at level 4, grade 4. So if you look at this email, I've removed all the personally identifying tags and replaced them with my name and different names, so the client stays anonymous. So if I copy this and paste in Hemingway, this is Sean Anthony's email. Sean Anthony's email comes out at grade 4. Then this is my client's email. It comes out as a staggering grade 7. So we have more sentences that are very hard to read and sentences that are hard to read. And for this particular email that came out at grade 7, what I did was I took this email and pasted down and went into Sean Anthony's emails and began to analyze the kind of words he used, whether he's using tentative words, whether he uses confident words, whether he uses sad, how he writes in sad notes, how he writes in joyful notes, whether he uses active versus passive words, whether he uses images, the kind of email leads he writes, and then even down to the kind of style and punctuation he writes. So you can see after breaking everything down, I was able to get a hang of Sean Anthony's voice and replicate it in this email. So if you look at this email carefully, I just started unpacking grocery with Sammy, my 4-year-old son. So it goes on and on and on. You can pause at any point to read the email. But what I'm going to do is to show you exactly where I rewrote the email into Sean Anthony's voice to see how different it sounds and how easy it comes out. So this is the original email, and using his voice, being a friend at the bar and learn as we go, I've been able to replicate the voice and rewrite that first email into a simpler version. So you can see, you can pause at any point to read the email to see exactly what I'm talking about. So I've broken everything down from the big words it was. You can see here, my client's email came out at a staggering grade 7 readability. And if I paste this one, I rewrote. If I paste this one, I rewrote. You can see it comes out at a grade 4, exactly like Sean Anthony's email. So this is the beauty about understanding the point on the graph where your client's voice falls in, and then decoding the cadence with Analyze My Writing. It was because I was able to decode the cadence and understand the voice, like where the voice falls in on the graph. Now I'm able to replicate this email that came out at a grade 7 with a lot of hard words to read, down to this simple one that I've rewritten in Sean Anthony's voice. And I'm going to paste it for you to access, so you can go through it at your own pace and see exactly what I'm talking about. Something else that I also noticed with Sean Anthony's voice is he writes in a subjective tone. He's not doing things are happening to him. That's a very, very subjective tone. And then when you gender analyze that, those kinds of sentences, they come out as feminine. So subtle things like this that people will miss, that you when you decode these voices down, you can easily see them and replicate them, so they sound like your client, like my client. So I'm going to gender analyze this phrase for you to see now. Oh, I've pasted it here already. So you can see his phrases skew feminine because he writes a lot of subjective sentences. He's not saying hey, businesses fail because of this. He's saying something like, oh, your business is struggling because of, like, it's putting you in the crossfire. So things like that sum up to make up the cadence, the vocabulary, and then depending on what you're sharing in the email, then you can now dictate the tone. And that's how I was able to decode Sean Anthony's voice and then replicate his email into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link the this sheet with just Sean Anthony's email and a rewritten version of this acquisition mastermind's email, so you can see and compare the old version to the new version and see exactly how I've been able to replicate his voice. Cheers.